The Natty set, it's going to be Indiana versus Miami, and those are two teams that are not SEC teams. And I think like for the last however many years, there's been this narrative out there that at one point was earned that died, I believe, about 5 years ago, just generally speaking. And it fully died, to me, in my eyes, in terms of like what it meant. It fully died the last 3 years, especially when NIL started to ramp up. And it was about the SEC. And what happens is when you get like a media environment that for 15 years is like spewing something that could be considered truth for a large part of it, as the cracks start to show up, there's so much of an insulated media market because money's important, money's on the table, that you start to see kind of excuses being made for certain conferences to kind of keep something alive. And that's what we saw or are seeing right now in terms of like the SEC landscape. And the thing is, it's been on really shaky ground the last couple of years in terms of like the SEC media environment. But the issue is people blindly follow the people that are lying to you. And when they lie to you or dishonest about arguments, because in large part they have to protect their pockets, you start to get fan bases that kind of parrot some certain things. So you get like an SEC ecosystem. Now, when it gets shattered, it takes like a big shattering. And I feel like this playoff was that. I mean, this is damning because here we go. SEC people, the two parroting points were acquiring talent and gauntlet were kind of the two things. And when you use the acquiring talent thing as a reason for your gauntlet and you use the money thing as a reason for your gauntlet, that's fine, except for when the talent acquisition process changes. And when it does, you have to change the lens of how you look at things, and you have to acknowledge what we see on the field versus what we see in recruiting rankings, because recruiting rankings also get skewed. We'll talk more about that later. But this, like, you can't argue with this. And this was the case last year too, not to this degree, but I think the ships passed in the night 2 years ago between the Big Ten and the SEC. The ships passed. And people didn't want to realize they passed until they got this far away. When I caught it and Zach caught it, it was right here. And one of the things that we always said was like, or this was my big take. This was my big early college football take. Big Ten coaching is better, and it's been better for so long. They just don't have the talent that SEC schools have. And what coaching is in the Big Ten has been is we can't afford to miss on recruits. We have to develop recruits to the absolute fullest. And the SEC, the landscape was, our best coaches are just our best recruiters, because if we miss on an eval, we don't have to worry about developing them. We'll just recruit over them in the next class. And so when you do that, you get coaches that operate with different levels of currency. Pat Fitzgerald, for example, was a better pure football coach than any coach in the SEC, maybe outside of Saban. But what happens is that those other schools in the South, because they're so close to talent and football, college football is a regional sport, they could just recruit over guys and fill gaps. Where in the Big Ten, it wasn't that. You had to coach guys up. You had to develop guys, even though they weren't the same caliber, quote-unquote, athletes. Now, with the portal, especially previously, and we'll see kind of how it adjusts, but when there was two portals, you were seeing a lot of the SEC guys who were really talented, who were getting recruited over. You were seeing them leave in the spring portal, and in that spring portal, they couldn't go to the SEC, so they had to go to the Big Ten, and the Big Ten coaches, because they're better coaches and better developers, they were able to develop them into older, good players, and that is how the gap closed between the SEC and the Big Ten. Now, it is funny because SEC people are kind of parroting a couple of different things, so we're gonna dig into the whys, but there are the people at the very top that see what's happening, and they don't want to feel like an idiot anymore. But other than those people at the top, everyone else is going to continue to make excuses, because that is kind of instead of having their worldview shattered, they're going to continue to make excuses. This is from Danny Cannell. This is a great tweet. For the third year in a row, the SEC will not have a team in the national championship game, even though they got gifted almost half the playoff field. Again, we're watching the collapse of a conference narrative in 4K. This one is one that I thought was incredibly wild. Like, this is like premier, like, dick sucking. I can't believe it. From Ryan Clark. Now, what's going to happen, which I expect this to be one of the new narratives, is you're going to try to claim Miami as an SEC school if Miami does win the title, or say that these two teams, the reason they're winning is because they're playing SEC-style football, which is really just a fancy way to say good football because for a while there they were playing the best football, and so they took the brand of it. So this sounds awful.
Because I'm going to break it down a little bit easier for you. And I know you're going to hate this.
I love it.
The Miami Hurricanes are the most traditionally SEC football team in all the country. It ain't Florida, it ain't LSU, it ain't Auburn, it ain't Alabama, it ain't Georgia. This is the first time Ole Miss this season has faced a team that plays like we historically believe SEC teams play.
The issue with that is a lot of teams play like that. In fact, their DC literally was the DC under Cignetti at JMU, and they run similar defenses according to their staffs, but you're not going to hear anybody say, you're just people, here we go, people like Ryan Clark, because they are SEC meat writers, they will confuse good football, any good to great football, any good dominant physical football. Oh, that's branded to the SEC. Like, that's not the sport of football. That's only the SEC, and that's why this is so crazy. Because like the SEC doesn't have a team in the championship, and so now it's like, oh well, Ole Miss only lost because they played against a traditional SEC team. Like, oh my God, a team that never even won the ACC is now being championed as an SEC team. It's absurd. The tricks that we're gonna do, the mental gymnastics that we're gonna do, all to discredit the shift that is happening.
Mm-hmm. The physicality was out the door.
Yep.
Football is a physical sport. Get physical specimens. The SEC doesn't own that. They don't own they don't own that idea of physical football.
3rd and 4th down, 3rd and 2, 4th and 2. What do? They turn around and hand the football off to Mark Fletcher.
Yeah.
They hand the football off to Tremore Brown. Mm-hmm. They run downhill and physically dominate Ole Miss. Defensively, they were the faster team. They were the more athletic team. They were the more active team. This game is actually way closer on the scoreboard than it was in real life. They dropped 4 picks.
Again, here we go. It's like, I just hate we're saying good physical football, brand that to the SEC. That's what we got to break out of. Like, that's the next thing we got to break free from. And if you're media literally, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
4 of them. Carson Beck throws an interception on a tip ball in the red zone. This team absolutely dominated from a physicality standpoint, from an athleticism standpoint. Malachi Toney, without a question, the most talented person on the field, and he just turned 18. Carson Beck executing when you're supposed to, in the biggest moments, like the best of players do from that conference. It has changed.
Like the best of players do from that conference. Like, oh my God, get a grip. Like, the best team in SEC history is a team led by a Big Ten quarterback. And what if I got on ESPN and said, look, Joe Burrow won a title at LSU, and he was so clutch, and just like the players traditionally, just like the players in the Big Ten, he was clutch. Like, people like, what? People would tell me to shut the fuck up so quick. Like, literally. He got, like, and here we go. This is back to coaching. Carson Beck got ran out of Georgia, got called all kinds of names at Georgia, said that, there was coaching failure at Georgia. He looks better now than he did in his last year at Georgia because the coaching is better in other conferences.
Changed. And now Miami, the U, is part of that change. No doubt.
What a crazy, and like, this is when you have to suck it, and you just, I guess you don't have the cash to be like, damn, I was wrong. And this is hilarious. Peter Burns, world-renowned trick star for the SEC. To all the haters of the SEC that said the SEC couldn't do it this year, you were right. Honestly, great call by the haters. Look, because he's someone that champions the SEC more than just about everybody else that I've heard. And he's, just an ESPN SEC shill. But even he can't keep the act up. Are they haters or are they honest? Haters. So we're haters because outside the SEC ESPN, we know it's a shell of what it once was. Gotcha. That's what I'm saying. This is important. Because not everyone that believes that the Big Ten has caught the SEC, not all of them are haters. They're just real and likely know the sport better than you that covers it because you're so insulated in your SEC marketplace. Recapping the SEC of the playoffs. Gifted half the field. 1 win over non-SEC teams, 1 semifinal appearance, 0 wins over non-SEC P4 teams, 0 representation in the final, and 1 incomplete threat by Paul Finebaum to leave the country if the SEC does not win a national title. The conference had a winning record against itself? Oh, my God. That's, again, there's going to be people. This is like when there's like a clear divide and like we now acknowledge there was clear and obvious propaganda. And it's going to be a battle between who sees it and who denies that it was propaganda, saying it's been real the entire time. Me and Brooks Austin got into it before the year on the timeline. And he tried to, sell me all of the ESPN talking points and try to sell me about, the SEC and how it's a gauntlet and how it's an unfair path and how they shouldn't go to 9 conference games because this, that, and the third. And it's like, well, no, they should go to them because the Big Ten on the football field has shown that they have at least at the bare minimum undeniably caught them, but more likely passed them with others on the way. Here we go.
End of the month in order to change it if they are.
We're now at a point, okay, SEC left out of the championship. And now there's this idea, more momentum, ESPN pushing this on Get Up, and this is awesome. Why? So Heather Dinich, other world-renowned SEC trick star, talking about it, about a 16-team playoff.
Have the 10th seed going to play for the national championship now. We hear a lot of people that say 12 teams isn't the right number. The way it's currently put together isn't right. They should expand to 16. What is your sense of where that all is right now and going forward?
Well, my sense in talking to sources is that there's more momentum than ever to go to a 16-team field, possibly as soon as 2026.
You know who her source is? Greg Sankey, who's going to try to muscle his way and get as many teams in the postseason as possible because we are now another year and no SEC teams are playing. But what's going to happen is the more the field expands, the more you're going to see SEC teams get embarrassed by the middle pack of the Big Ten. And that's one that once that starts happening, that's going to be really hard for the Brooks Austins, for the Heather Diniches, for the people that are still holding on to this SEC thing. That's going to be really hard for them to run away from.
If SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey and Big Ten Commissioner Tony Petitti can agree to it, and right now that stalemate still exists. Those two men have the bulk of control over the future format. The deadline is at the end of the month in order to change it if they are going to. And if they cannot agree, it will stay at 12 for now.
And they're not going to agree because Sankey's not going to negotiate from a position of zero power. And right now, Sankey has zero power. Right now, if I am Tony Petitti, I am inviting the ACC to the table more now than ever because they've got a team in that championship and they look really good. I'm inviting Brett Yormark. I'm inviting these guys because, look, it's like we are the new Greg Sankey. We are the new SEC. We are simply better top to bottom wise. And because of that, that's why you got the SEC going to 9 conference games because, the SEC is behind the Big Ten right now, and all the media shills are now acknowledging that, and it's glorious to watch. Okay, in December, SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey said the SEC deserves 7 bids to the college football playoff and that 5 wasn't enough. He said that Vanderbilt and Texas should have also been in the playoff. Despite getting 5 bids, the SEC did not reach the national championship for the 3rd season in a row. In a bowl season as a whole, the SEC finished 4-10, worst of any conference. 2 of those wins and those losses were to other SEC teams. So in non-conference postseason play, the SEC went 2-8. One of the wins over Michigan, I'm adding this, is to a team that literally fired their coach and went through a huge turnover. Just adding that in there. With Miami's victory over Ole Miss last night, the SEC finished 6-8 against the ACC. Ooh, it's a losing record. Second time in the last 3 years they've had a losing record to the ACC. Again, second time in 3 years the SEC's had a losing record to the ACC. You could do the talent acquisition thing. You could do all that. What you cannot argue with is what happens on the football field, which is why the hypothetical win for the SEC is becoming funnier and funnier. It seems like the era of blind special treatment and benefit of the doubt for the SEC has come to an end. We'll have to wait until August to see if there's 10 SEC teams in the preseason poll again to see if the narrative did end up getting rebooted. This is Sankey.
I think their participation in the so I focus on the opportunity, and I think their participation in the college football playoff is clear, but we're going to have to see what happens today. I actually think we deserve 7 in. I think the 7 teams that are in the top 14, half of the top 14 teams are from the SEC. That's an indication that this league is different, the expectations are different, the competition is different, and the rewards should respect each of those elements.
This conference is different. Different how, Greg?
The
edge is gone. The sword is gone.
The first round is now.
It's literally the Incredibles thing. It's like if NIL NIL and Portal is the power, right? And there's the line in the Incredibles where it's like if everybody's super, no one is. For 10 to 15 years, the SEC was operating in a world where they were the only ones that were super. And everyone else was trying to compete with them without being super. Now everybody's super. And so the better coaches, the smarter coaches, the ones that develop, the ones that don't get the luxury of recruiting over guys all the time, those teams are coming out on top. The teams that value development, the teams that are really good at scouting, the teams that have the best coaches again. Because when everybody's super, no one is. And for too long, the SEC relied on their superpower, and now the superpower has been neutralized. This was a year ago, known SEC shill who said he would never let his son play for Jim Tressel, but let his son play for Sharon Moore, neither here nor there. Kirk Herbstreit, Buckeye, talking about Indiana and the reasoning for Indiana to not make the playoff. Now, a year later, here we go. They only lost to 2 teams all year, and it was the 2 teams that played in the national championship, and also they lost by less points to Notre Dame than Georgia did. But here we go. This was at the end of the Tennessee-Ohio State game. The end of this, the playoff field's already set, and he's still campaigning. And this sounds like satire.
The first round is now complete. All home teams won. They not only won, but they won by double digits. What is your biggest takeaway from this first weekend of the 12-team playoff?
That I hope next year the committee won't get caught up in what the social media and a lot of people who are fringe fans get caught up in, which is wins. They had 11 wins. They must be good. Who did they beat? I think is.
This is where also this is so dishonest because he's about to move into the who did they beat argument. The who did they beat is dictated and driven by who you say as the network is good or who's not. What's more important is how did you beat them? Indiana last year covered in every single game except for one during regular season. That is worth it. They were beating the shit out of teams. They were whooping teams. But Kirk Herbstreit got on this network and said, well, who did you beat? And the issue is, if you say the only people that are worth a damn in terms of like wins are the people in the SEC, that is how you skew the narrative entirely. Like that is part of the narrative driving that needs unpacked, that needs picked apart. And he was sent on this dummy mission to go crash and burn. And so now, who did you beat? Who did you beat? Who did you beat? And then it's asking, well, who do you think is good, Kirk? Who do you think is good, ESPN? And you list off, well, these are the good wins, and it's all the SEC schools. That's where you lose everybody. And now, a year later, Indiana's proving that last year wasn't a fluke.
Much more important than how many wins you have. That
Again, he's doing the who did you beat, even though who did you beat is so narrative-driven, to how many wins you have. What he skipped over is the how you beat them, which is important.
Old school way of approaching it has, Indiana having 11 wins and beating nobody. That doesn't mean they're one of the 12 best teams. Remember, I know, Linda, I'm not taking this out on you, but there's a big difference between deserving and best.
Yeah.
What this is all about is giving us the best 12 teams. Now,
doing this again after one round of the playoffs.
Now, it's subjective. How you want to figure out the best 12 is up to you. But that's what I want to see. I don't want to hear about wins. How many wins? Winning's obviously important, but just because you have 11 wins doesn't mean you're better.
The archaic thing here that Kirk Herbstreit is avoiding is that the SEC is not as good last year. It's not has not been as good for years.
Than a team that maybe had a tougher road that had 9 wins. So I think.
And again, literally doing this about Indiana when Tennessee just got blown off the lot by Ohio State is disgusting. Because it was never leave Tennessee out for another SEC school. It was leave Indiana out for an SEC school, which is disgusting. And again, just the whole like narrative drive thing.
We get too caught up in how many wins you have. It's really more about who are the best 12 teams, and we need to get the best 12 teams in this tournament every year.
Again, literally during the Ohio State-Tennessee game. And it's not about maybe Tennessee should have been left out. It was Indiana should have been left out, which, holy shit. And that's last year. This is this year. Again, we're watching the SEC narrative crumble right before our very eyes. It's beautiful.
Is swung because it's not just the national championship. I think the pendulum is swung because it's not just the national championship with Michigan and Ohio State, potentially Oregon, Indiana. It's the rest of what's been happening, and that's the only thing you've always had to go by. And I know it's subjective, and you can go back and forth, but the perception and the optics right now, SEC stock is down these last couple of years, and the Big Ten is way up.
Not just perception, it's reality. And again, a year ago, Kirk Herbstreit got on television and almost campaigned for Indiana to not be in the playoffs, even though we just watched Tennessee get absolutely obliterated by Ohio State. But it would have been against company policy to go Indiana or Tennessee should have been left out for another SEC school, and that's neither here nor there. But again, he is still holding on to something because he didn't say over the last 4 years or 3 years like it is. And he didn't say reality. He said perception. He's still leaving the door open to make his network happy.
SEC stock is down these last couple of years in the Big Ten. SEC stock is down these last couple of years in the Big Ten is way up.
Absurd. Here we go.
Paul, I'll go to you.
This is the ultimate writer, Paul Feinbaum. There's no way to defend the SEC. It's been terrible. I'm telling you, the pendulum didn't just swing. It was two ships passing in the night, but they passed 2 years ago.
Is the SEC dominance over as we know it?
I mean, I'm under contract to disagree with you, but I don't really care about
Not even trying to hide the propaganda anymore. I'm under contract to disagree with you.
the contract. Yes. I mean, I have been on that hill, Stephen A., and I am getting destroyed. There's no way to defend the SEC. It's been terrible. Now, I'm sure somebody at the SEC office is whispering, "Hey, don't forget, Ole Miss could win it all," and that would solve some.
Not anymore.
Of the wounds, but this has been a long year for the SEC, and I think in the end, because I kept wrapping my arms around Alabama and saying, Stephen A., did you remember what they did? They went through that gauntlet in the middle of the year. Well, right. A lot of those teams they beat really weren't very good after all. They lost.
Quiet part out loud. That gauntlet they went through, those teams are not that good.
Lost in bowl games, and they looked terrible.
Right.
So it's a rough year for the SEC. Ole Miss is it, regardless of the Lane Kiffin story, which I know we're going to talk about. But there's no if Ole Miss loses Thursday night, and I'm sitting around having to defend this league to you, Stephen A., saying, "Oh, no big deal that it's 3 straight years without an SEC." Team in the national championship game. I mean, there's no defense. Well, it's been rough.
Again, we're seeing the jumping of ship. And when that happens, the people who are going to stay on the ship are going to start to get weird. They're going to anchor down, not go anywhere. And I'm ready for it. And you kind of started to see it a little bit. You're going to start to see it with the way they talk about Signetti's team, because Signetti was fun to root for, but now you're going to start to see the sneak dissing and the shade come in primarily from SEC country. Here's Clapp.
Gauntlet of the SEC. It's the best conference in the world. Obvious. Look at what we do. Even though they're the conference that still just plays 8 conference games. Even though they're the conference that has not even participated in a national championship game now for 3 straight years. And when you look at the metrics, the draft is changing, in particular in the first round. Look at the last few years. It is not as drastic as it used to be, and in fact, it's equating out. I mean, there was a strong push from some in our sport and some networks with deep relationships with the SEC about, well, maybe there should be 7 SEC teams.
The commissioner as well.
In the college football playoff. Well, that's a problem. That's a problem because it is clearly not the case that the strength resides in that conference. It's just not. The data bears that out. I'm not even arguing for another conference right now. I'm just arguing against this narrative that the SEC is a gauntlet that it has to be rewarded, and that it has to be given the benefit of the doubt. That narrative needs to die. It needs to die a quick death now because it hurts the sport. We barely got Miami into this playoff. I mean, barely got Miami into this playoff. Why? Because of narrative. Because that conference had to have at least minimum 5 because it's the gauntlet. Well, listen, no, it's not. I'm sorry. It's not. The play on the field has been very clearly shifting for a long time. The Big Ten is better at the top than the SEC, and that's not just me saying that. That's what the data tells us.
And the wins, Joe Clapp, the football field says.
What's clear is that the Big Ten has dominated when it's mattered. They're 4-0 in the playoff of the last 3 seasons. They're a game away from their 3rd straight national championship. And maybe, just maybe, what would be better for the sport is if we started to step outside of our silos and stop arguing about who's the best silo. Because when we do...
Bingo. And just real quick, what the SEC has done is they're so insulated with their media outlets and media personalities that they don't look at other silos to the point where you got people like Brooks Austin who will come out and admittedly say he doesn't watch, he doesn't grind as much Big Ten tape, and part of that's because what you can and can't do with it. But everybody is only listening to people in their own media ecosystem. And I've always said this, if you really want to learn, you can't just scroll. You have to go outside of what you're traditionally used to listening to get an outside perspective, or else your viewpoint becomes so insulated that you think that everything else you hear when you hear a counterpoint is somebody gaslighting you, and it turns into you gaslighting them.
Do that, all we do is point fingers, and nobody looks at fixing the entirety of the sport. Nobody does. So as we argue for our silo to be so good, I want this conference, that conference. Well, guess what happens in the meantime? No one's looking out for the overarching product.
Well, that is fair, Joel, but I guess my other pushback is the only reason now that we're getting mass pushback is because Big Ten people are pushing back aggressively against the SEC's media silo, because for a while there, it was like the SEC's the best conference. It was like, okay, like we get it. The SEC's the best conference. We get it. We didn't push back at that at all. But then when the shift started happening, SEC people stopped being honest about it, and the network stopped being honest about it. So then it created like this war amongst the media between the Big Ten and the SEC. Like that's why it happened. It happened. You can't. I don't even like talk about politics, but if you want peace, you can't only ask one side to put their gun down. If you want peace, you can't just ask one side to stop fighting. And with the conference the conference wars. The SEC has been fighting. SEC media has been fighting a bloody fight for a while. They've been winning for a while. The Big Ten just started fighting when they started winning. But for them, they shouldn't have to fight, because the same way Big Ten media acknowledged, okay, the SEC is the best conference. When they were, the Big Ten is expecting the SEC media group to do the same, and they won't. So that's why we're getting a fight. Because at one point, the Big Ten laid down, you guys are the best conference. We got it. And Big Ten media and Big Ten narrative pushers would hope that when the tides turned, that the SEC would do the same, and they have not. Like, this is the first week that they've kind of started to. And now what the spin has been is, well, we don't actually root for the conference anyway. We don't actually, there's actually not a conference brotherhood. Yes, there is. In the SEC, there's been one for a while. But now for the first time, there's one on the outer side. And you don't like how it feels, so you're calling it corny. And you're saying, oh, root for your conference. That's never the case. It's gaslighting.
And we see that with a broken structure. We see that with a broken calendar. We see that because we can't get a CBA done. We can't get Congress to give us antitrust exemptions. We can't do a lot of things. We're playing semifinal games on a Thursday and Friday night. Why? Because the structure of our sport is broken.
Okay. Now, Cignetti is going to be the newest one that is there's this thing that happens in like human nature, and you see it across all entertainment fields. When you're on your way up and you're the ultimate underdog story, it's incredible to root for you. People love that, always. And the closer you get to the mountaintop, if it's fast, people are going to start to look at you like, wait a second, I'm not sure I fuck with you. We saw it in the NBA with the Golden State Warriors. It was really fun to root for Golden State. But when they got to the top, it's like, no, fuck Golden State. Fuck Steph Curry. Let's tear this shit down. Let's devalue these championships. Devalue these rings. You kind of see it in music. When Drake got to the top, he was at the top for too long. People want to see you go back down. With LeBron, it was fun to watch LeBron go on his chase for the first ring. But then when he went through the steps to get the ring, it's like, no, we don't like that. Even though we saw the Celtics do the same thing before. So you see this, and here we go. Just something of note. Here's some really fucking great teams. Largest point differentials in a single season in college football era. 2025 Indiana, 2018 Clemson, 2019 Ohio State, my favorite Buckeye team ever to not win a natty, and then 2019 LSU's on here. They are beating the shit out of teams. And now that Kirsten Netty is in the limelight more and more and more, and people are kind of turning on him a little bit and turning on Sig, and people, and they're turning on him because they can't figure out how he's doing it, and they don't want to accept that he's just a better coach than the sport has seen in the last 10 years. Yes, including Saban. We'll talk about this in a sec, but last year, that's Mendoza, that's targeting, 35-10 lead that ended up a 39-38 Miami comeback. That's the last time Fernando played Miami. Now, obviously, it's a very different Miami team, but they're going to get another crack at it, so I'm rooting for Fernando. But anyway, the highest point differential ever. And now you've got this happening. And this isn't from just two little, small internet accounts, but I think people are getting brain broken to what Indiana is doing. Indiana is so buttoned up, it's almost like they know your plays. Crazy. I watched the 4th and 1 Oregon had. The entire IU defense was slanted to that side. Scouting or advanced knowledge. Makes you wonder. Where's the side question? Starting to get a little bit weird. They're really a step ahead every time. I mean, it's one thing for a school like Indiana to win a national championship. That's crazy and awesome, too. It's another thing to be blowing teams by 40, out by 40. So Doug Elliott posted that, knowing that it was going to get some reaction. Mike Ryan, who is a pretty big deal in ACC Twitter, Miami Twitter, Meadowlark Media. That's the Levitard Show and them. So obviously, big following. Enough stuff is out there. Whether it's true or not, you can count on Miami being wise to the hearsay and accounting for it. Spot the ball. This rumor is becoming a thing that Miami could be cheating. And it's crazy because, again, when someone's so good, and Cincinnati, I think, is healing the sport, healing how we view the sport, changing the DNA of the sport. Additionally, beating Oregon so bad kind of gets rid of the JMU narrative, entirely the G5 narrative at all, because, blowouts happen all the time. So, punishing the G5 would not be right because, shit, we just got a blowout between those two teams. So, shout out Sig for making sure the G5 remains good in their book. So you're getting the Miami's cheating thing as one route. And then the other route is the Miami is old. I mean, not Miami. Indiana is old thing. So you got Indiana is cheating, or you've got Indiana's old. Those are the two things now being used down to cut Signetti down. Fernando Mendoza was hyped to advance to the national championship. We're a bunch of misfits. There's no 5-stars on our team. Just a bunch of gritty guys who are glued together and going towards a common goal. This is Maurice Collette. Mo. I like Mo. I think he's wrong here, though. This narrative is wrong. Started out as misfits, but lots of older and experienced college players now. Kurt Signetti made them buy into that. I ain't buying into it anymore. Again, it's fun till you're at the top. This is an important note. We're just going to go the back and forth. I think people are missing the boat on the Indiana roster. None of the defensive starters were recruited out of high school. 9 of the defensive starters were recruited out of high school, at IU, or by SIG at JMU. 5 offensive starters, too. They've stayed, they've gotten better, and they've been augmented with transfers, but they've hit big on high school. Yeah, here we go. I want to do these tweets together, but first I want to hit this one. This was wild, man, because we saw Brooks Austin tweet this. We talk about this Indiana team as if they're a miracle of coaching, and they are, but they have NFL players too. That one. But then it's like, wait, why can't my team, the Georgia Bulldogs, do that? Boom. This was right afterwards. So it's like I started to believe in the coaching job, but like, wait, something went off in my brain. Why can't Georgia look like this? Let me get back to it. Until super seniors are out of the sport entirely, probably should load your roster up with 23-year-olds like Indiana has. Funny. Jack Mack. This is like the subtweeting war. Be skeptical of any tweet mentioning the average age of Indiana's team. I have no idea how you calculate the actual age of the roster. Date of birth of college players is not accessible. You can estimate, but it's not perfect. Plus, using the 29-year-old punter to skew it is lame, which is what's happening. Then you've got this. A lot being made of Indiana being old, but this isn't the grown men versus the kids game that some are saying it is. Indiana, starters who graduated high school in 20 to 21, 8. Oregon, starters who graduated that same year, 6. That's just 2 more. But again, you got people like Brooks Austin peddling this narrative. Now he's gonna. I tweeted back at him. He's gonna have to change how he evaluates talent, and I think this is kind of lame, but whatever. This was a great reply from Zach. Charlie Becker, Mario are true sophomores. So is Daniel. I don't know how to say his last name, but he was super disruptive. 3 of IU's first 5 offensive linemen started their careers in Bloomington. Omar Cooper and Isaiah, all them were all at Indiana. Indiana got old the way everybody else does, by guys staying in school. Way to tear down a narrative, Zach. That's big. And
out of this
is what's being peddled down there at Georgia as they're trying to cope with the fact that they're not in the national championship, even though they're really talented. How is Indiana doing it, and how is Carson Beck doing it? So they're going through it. So this was about maybe Georgia's year being next year.
The unspoken subtext to that is based on the fact that we were so young. But here's the thing you got to understand. In the current age of college football we live in, formerly 2025, now 2026, if your team is young, then that was your choice. That if you wanted an older team, you could have just brought in older players, because there's this stat that everybody's been throwing around. I think The Athletic published the other day that when you look at Georgia compared to other teams in the college football playoff, 90% of Georgia's players were signed out of high school. Only 10% of its starts this year came from transfers. By comparison, Ole Miss, Indiana, Miami,
all schools that went through coaching changes, by the way.
Oregon, like 40-something% on average of these 4 teams that are remaining, their starts this year have come from transfer players. These are teams that have just chosen to be a lot more transfer heavy. Now, a lot of Georgia fans say, well, that's not what I want Georgia to be. But understand that in life there are trade-offs, and Georgia this year chose to be young. And to hear some tell it, being a little younger, not having as many transfers, that may have reduced the ceiling of likely achievement that Georgia was going to find this year. And
I think it reduced the floor, not the ceiling.
When you look at the way in which college football is,
again, we're entering a unique time. It's adapt or die. Like, the fabric of the sport is changing entirely. Here we go. This is part of the narrative.
5-star, that's only 8.
This is part of the narrative we're going to hear more and more with Indiana, because people now, the story is starting to get old a little bit. Like, people want to figure out what the sauce is, what the juice is, and so we are entering the teardown phase, or the start of it.
Then he's cracked the code of the future of college football, where experience and age matters way more than stars. Look how old his team is. First, look at all the year 5 and year 6 guys. This experience will win out over a 5-star that's only 18. How about this one? The average age of their team is 23 years old. That's an NFL team. The Packers' average age is 25. In fact, Indiana doesn't have a single offensive player under 21, and they play more 6th-year seniors than underclassmen. A lot of Indiana's old impact players don't show up on these charts because 6 years ago they were only rated a 3-star. The true blue chip 5-stars, they're off to the NFL by 21. Here's what Signetti looks for. You're a 2 or 3-star out of high school, but by the time you're transferring, you're up to a 4-star and 22 years old. This is Fernando Mendoza, by the way. He won the Heisman. He admitted.
It's funny to bring up Fernando Mendoza when he's a true junior, by the way.
In a recent interview, his type is to bring 15 or 20 guys out of high school, but fill the rest of the roster with guys who started 2 or 3 years at another Power 4 school. But while these guys didn't necessarily have 5 stars by the name when they were 18, they will likely still outplay the 5 stars who are 4 or 5 years younger than them. Sure, there's always going to be a Jeremiah Smith here or there, but for the most part, a team of old guys will win in college football. And Kurt Cignetti building a disciplined team that's old AF is the new way in college.
Thing is, they're not that much older. I think it's a thing that's really confusing. So, here's Friday hot take from Bud Davis. What Cignetti has done at Indiana is so unprecedented and outside of normal real of what modern college football data tells us to expect. The kind that I suspect there's some sort of cheating going on. Oh yeah, back to the cheating. This isn't based on any evidence, just total speculation. And what is this? This is not a big Twitter, so I'll ignore it. Just call it a fringe guy. Again, 3-star sophomore wrecking the game. They're a bunch of 8th-year, 27-year-old transfers. Other good thing that he's doing. This Indiana team has a ton of G5 players, yet talking heads will continue to tell you this offseason that the gap between the G5 and P4 is so big that G5 schools don't belong in the playoffs. This is obviously not the case, not because it's true, but because having bigger brands in the playoffs means more money for the companies that these talking heads work for. Football is for everyone. This Indiana team is proof of that. Bingo. Anybody can get blown out is the point.
Playing in the national, a lot of people say that the transfer portal and NIL have destroyed college football. I actually think it's made college football better.
It's made it more entertaining in a year-round sport, but it feels a little ickier than it used to. Because, and it's at its core, college football is a regional sport. We are now breaking free of that regional window, I guess.
Because now there's more parity. It's harder to be a team that is constantly repeating or constantly playing in the national championship game, playing in the college football playoff semifinals. It's harder to do now.
Yeah.
Ohio State, $35 million roster.
Okay. What the fuck? This is also crazy. He lied to. RGD, that's wrong as shit, bro. This is not a $35 million roster. What the fuck?
Couldn't get to the college football semifinal this year. So you can say, well, you just spend the most money and you can make it happen. Ohio State spent the most money. They didn't make
Ohio State didn't spend the most money. You sound dumb as a box of rocks. I'm actually not going to even finish watching that. Fuck that. Fun story. Let's go, dude. You know, I'm going to move this to the end. No, I don't want to hit that. Oh, this a refreshing Lane Kiffin take that I thought was fascinating. I love Bomani Jones, and a lot of people feel like Lane Kiffin's going to get it done very quickly at LSU. I wonder. Now, Bomani, who's more of an outsider of the college football world, had this to say, which I think honestly holds some credence.
This is a job where Les Miles and Ed Ogeron can win national championships, but also a job where Brian Kelly can get shit canned. Your mileage may vary.
And again, Brian Kelly's the better of those 3 coaches.
On what this job is. I think there's something to be said about Les and Ed and their understanding of, if we get really big guys, I think we'll be okay. The thing about Les and Ed that I think was very important and that Brian Kelly was not, and what got him in trouble is, and also Nick Saban, they are not insincere. That is a place that I think values a certain level of sincerity. Lane Kiffin drips with insincerity at every turn. He better win, and he better win fast, because they will get sour on him quickly.
100%. If Lane Kiffin doesn't work out, that's why. Oh, I thought this video was awesome.
Coming in. What's going on, Tiger Nation? I've been keeping up with the recruiting. We got some young studs that's coming in, some great players. Proud to have you. But what the fuck is we doing? Lane, we brought you over here to bring firecrackers, not no fucking sparkles. You supposed to be up in this portal blowing the doors off this bitch. Sam Levitt, he got a visit. Motherfucker sign him. Ain't no visit. He ain't leaving without that pain up in his hand. He want 3.1 million, give it to him. We went way to Hawaii for a wide receiver. No disrespect to him. We got Cam Coleman sitting out there like a piece of relish that they bought out with the fucking hot wings. He won 1.8 million. Motherfucker, give it to him.
That's how I feel too. People don't want my Ohio State takes right now, but like I feel like Ohio State needs to operate that way too.
What's going on? We supposed to be tearing this bitch up right now. No ifs, ands, and buts about it. Come on now. What the O-line at? Hold up. Okay. He going up. Lance Hurd. His big ass to get up in that hole from Tennessee. Motherfucker, sign him. Go get Lance Hurd. We need who else?
I love it. I love it. I think I might save a couple of these ones for later on. This video ended up going long. Oh, last thing, dude. Big news coming out of Ann Arbor. Dude, Kerry Combs using a boom for a Michigan commit. What? Fucking gross, bro. Fuck, dude. Oh, this might be my last one. 3 years ago, James Madison had Signetti and Brighton as their men's basketball coach. Now Signetti in Indiana is 15-0, and Vandy is 15-0 after the second best start in school history. Bro, JMU had this bitch rocking in 3 years ago. And that's that. That's what I got. Make sure you like and sub. I'll be back. This is a little bit longer one, but I wanted to, and just because there's so much like SEC narrative stuff kind of coming out, and also like I think the shit about Christian cheating is awesome because it's like, okay, Indiana is winning in a way that we've never seen before. There has to be an alternative reason as to why. What is it? Are they old or are they cheating? I'm Chris Drew. I'll tab with you guys later. Make sure you like and sub.